I want to talk today about the failure of a reboot that is Rocko's Modern Life Static Cling, and why everyone should be upset about it. I want to preface by saying I'm not just talking about the boomers who refuse to accept change, the conservatives, or any other person like that. I mean everyone. So, if you haven't seen the original, you may be wondering what it's about. Rocko's Modern Life is an American cartoon that first aired in September 1993 to November 1996. Rocko's Modern Life follows the life of our main character Rocko, an Australian cartoon wallaby, and his journey to adapt to American culture as a recent immigrant from Australia. The show's animation draws a lot of similarities to Warner Brother animation, a very wacky and outlandish kind of cartoon. Think of Bugs Bunny, Animaniacs, Looney Tunes, or any other Warner Bros. Cartoon, and you can probably see the similarities. Rocko's Modern Life was never meant to be taken too seriously. Typically, you could find some moral to each story, but its main focus was its use of slapstick comedy as sort of a social commentary, particularly making fun of the first world problems, capitalism, consumerism, and just everyday problems many Americans faced at that time. It did this in such a way that didn't strictly drive an agenda or a moral, but instead let viewers interpret it for themselves. To put it plainly, the show was subtle to say the least, and if you wanted to just sit back and enjoy the humor of it, you could. There was no overwhelming sense of morality, it was just a fun cartoon that both children and adults could enjoy. Now, let's take a look at the reboot. Rocko returns to us once again more than 22 years since the last episode aired, for a one-time Netflix special, Rocko's Modern Life Static Cling. The special opens with our familiar characters whizzing around in a rocket in space. Our characters quickly find the solution they've been looking for to be able to return to Earth after 20 years.
We're home! Let's frolic innocently in nature!
After having landed on Earth, we transition to the familiar social comedy the show is known for, poking fun at things like the gluttony of drinking Starbucks, consumers' ever-growing need to have the latest iPhone, and of course, sharing your entire life on social media for that ever-satisfying like.
Hello, internets! It's me, Fishsticks96, with my trusty selfie-o-matic cranial attachment.
All of this, in my opinion, was thoroughly enjoyable up to this point. It really respects the source material, and it feels right at home with any other Rocko episode, but, in a modern-day setting, 2019. Rocko quickly discovers, by conversing with his neighbors, that his all-time favorite show has been cancelled. This, in my opinion, is a nice, subtle nod to the viewer about Rocko's modern life, and how the show itself actually ended 20 years ago.
Bev, do you know what channel the Fatheads are on?
Ew. Oh, that's been off the air for years now.
No? Fatheads?
Yes, darling, not even reruns.
Rocko is understandably upset. If I had been trapped in space for 20 years, I'd probably be looking forward to some new episodes of my favorite TV show. Anyway, due to the re-entry of the rocket that Rocko was on, Ed Bighead, executive for Conglamo Corporation, makes an accounting error. This error ultimately causes the company and the entire town to be put at risk of bankruptcy. Rocko suggests bringing back his favorite TV show, The Fatheads, in an attempt to garner the company more money and to save the town. The CEO of Conglamo Corp accepts, and Rocko sets on a journey to find the original director of the show, Ralph Bighead. Now, this is where I believe the show starts to absolutely tank. Rocko discovers Ralph selling ice cream out of a truck somewhere in the desert. It's quickly revealed that Ralph is no longer Ralph, but instead comes out as transgender and goes by the name of Rachel.
I'll do it for my parents. But since the last time I saw them, I've changed. I'm not Ralph anymore. I'm Rachel.
This would have absolutely been fine, if they had stuck to simply acknowledging that the character was transgender and leaving it at that. However, when Rocko and Rachel Bighead return to find her father, Ed Bighead, the episode plot quickly devolves from saving the city from bankruptcy into a plot about transgender acceptance, with the bankruptcy plot taking a back seat. Ed Bighead sees his son, now daughter, Rachel, for the first time since her transition, and is visibly upset, going as far as to storm off, disregarding his daughter's personal identity and effectively disowning her. The plot continues to revolve around the subject, and eventually at the end, Ed Bighead accepts his daughter for who she is. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this video that everyone should be upset by the events that took place in this special. Why? It's not because of transgender acceptance. Instead, I believe that this is an absolutely horrible example of predatory marketing. Now, when I say predatory marketing, I don't mean it in the traditional sense of a company underselling another company in order to run them out of business. When I say predatory marketing, I mean the show's writers and directors specifically went out of their way to stray from the source material. Instead, they decided to contrive a story to pander to a susceptible audience, much like the way many corporations did during Pride Month, such as changing their logo to reflect the pride flag. We do, after all, live in a society of acceptance. Those that are unaccepting are seen as undesirable, so putting on the facade of acceptance drives their ratings up. The staff of the show, knowing this, decided that rather than honoring the show's almost 23-year anniversary with a spectacular special, would instead attempt to profit off those susceptible to this kind of marketing. A little background, originally the special was set to premiere on Nickelodeon in 2018, but at some point Nickelodeon sold the distribution rights to Netflix. Now, Netflix exclusives are not uncommon, but what you need to know about Netflix exclusives is the monetary motivation behind them. Netflix typically pays out of pocket for these exclusives, and in return hopes that such exclusives bring new and old subscribers to their platform, and helps retain current customers. So what am I getting at? What's the point? Well, let me spell it out. Netflix, and even Nickelodeon to some extent, is profiting off the pain and suffering so many transgender people go through on a daily basis. This is absolutely disgusting. And in fact, if you go on Netflix and look for the listing for Rocko's Modern Life, Static Cling, you'll notice that it's actually listed under the genre of LGBTQ movies. It may not be painfully obvious at first glance, but this is a charade, and I cannot stand for it, and neither should any of you. As the consumers, we're being taken advantage of emotionally. I've already canceled my Netflix subscription, and while to some of you that may seem like overreacting, if we don't stand up somehow, will things ever change? I think I've fussed about this enough, and I fully expect my inbox to blow up with a bunch of hate mail, but I hope at least some of you will take the words that I've said and kind of, consider what's going on with today's modern media and their practices. Anyways, that's all for now. I'd love to hear what everyone's thoughts are on this Rocko reboot, and if you have any other examples of predatory marketing or pandering, let me hear about them in the comments.